am I? So why am I here? I guess first and foremost, I believe passionately in education, and that's been a driving force that my own mother very much instilled into me, and my father too. But specifically, my mother was years ahead of her time, believed very strongly in education for young girls. So that's one reason why I'm here. I obviously want to support the centre because I think we've got a very real mission to do, and also because I think it's just a minefield, and we all make decisions in life, but it is about making informed decisions. Having knowledge is power, knowing why you want to do something rather than just drift into it. So who am I? Well, I'm from Coventry originally in the Midlands. I went to a very, very ordinary comprehensive, certainly nothing like some of the schools on offer in Liverpool. And I ended up in Liverpool. I did a sandwich degree in applied chemistry. I did work experience as part of that degree in a company called Glaxo, which you will have heard of. And then after that, I had a job to go back to in Glaxo, and I suddenly decided I wanted to teach. And I did my PGC, my postgraduate certificate of education, taught in a couple of other schools, Sutton High, and then SFX for 15 years, where I ended up being assistant head of sixth form before moving to St Edward's to be the head of chemistry. But I think probably some of the advice and the help I give today is as a mum, as a parent, because I'm the mother of 3 children, and it's just so difficult for parents to know what to do for the best. So first of all, why university? I guess the question could also be said, why not? I would definitely advise modern apprenticeships as being a viable alternative for many pupils and students. But university does seem to be very much the holy grail of our education system. So I just want to picture this scenario where, I don't know if any of you have ever bought your own mobile phones and a smartphone and done your research into it, or bought a major item of expenditure, maybe even a car, and you will have done your research. Okay, so if I went to the bank this afternoon and said, I'd like to loan £50,000 to £60,000, please, and the manager would say, yes, what's your guarantee? What's your income? I was like, oh, I'm not going to be earning anything. Well, what is it you're going to do? Oh, I don't know yet. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're applying to university. So the fees are £9,250 per year. The maintenance loan varies between 4,000 to 9,000. And on top of that, you will need more money. So you don't make those kinds of decisions lightly. You do your research, and you do your research as early as possible, because it's all about getting value for money and making the right decisions. So why do we do it? Well, obviously to expand your knowledge, because you love a particular subject, because you may want to meet new people and enjoy new experiences, enjoy your first taste of independence and freedom, get a qualification that's internationally recognised, and develop essential and transferable skills that you'll need throughout your career. Because I think most of us would realise now that the job you may start after your degree is not necessarily the one that you'll end up with. And I know that the last time I had a college reunion with my friends from John Moores, I was the only person who was still in a lab. Everybody else had moved into management or accounting or whatever. So I was the only person who was still handling chemicals, which I found astonishing. So we will have to need to acquire transferable skills. It certainly increases your earning potential, and the average salary for graduates is 30% higher than for non-graduates aged 25 to 30, and continues through life to be at a higher level. To experience student life, a huge range of clubs, societies and social life, and subjects. We get very pigeonholed in schools into thinking, oh, I love history, I love chemistry. But the chemistry degrees that you can do, chemistry with law, chemistry with forensic science, it's absolutely a wealth of opportunities that we don't fully appreciate at school. There are over 50,000 different courses at university. And I remember when I moved to St Edward's, I was talking to a year 12 class, and I said, I was quite dismissive. I said, oh, I've just read in the newspaper at the weekend that there's a course in golf course management. Can you imagine? And one of the pupils pulled me right up in it and said, well, actually, I think you'll find this is one of the most career-enhancing courses to study, because leisure is the big thing. Having that extra qualification other than a love of golf puts that, and I did my research then, and found out he was absolutely right, that golf course management was definitely very much a very desirable degree with great outcomes. You can have very vocational courses like medicine, like pharmacy, like veterinary science. You can do abstract courses. Contemporary circus and physical theatre is on offer at Bath Spa University. Bloodstock and performance horse management at the Royal Agricultural Union. The racing industry is a huge one in the country, very successful. Why wouldn't they want degree students? And there's everything in between. So that's why I think we should be looking at university. So why do we do it if we're going to get into debt and it's going to be 3 years at least minimum? Well, you may have no idea. Well, join the club. Go to university and your life will definitely change. I came up to Liverpool from Coventry. I never went back. I never saw that happening, but you make life choices because you enjoy the city, you enjoy the course, you enjoy all the other things. So what course do you apply for? Well, you may have absolutely no idea. Again, my experience of teaching is that is indeed the majority of pupils. So the first point, if you have no idea, pick a university website. Now, we are very fortunate to live in Liverpool. We have the University of Liverpool, we have John Moores University, we have Hope University, and we've got UCLan down the road at Ormskirk. So you've got 4 top universities in their field, all of which have great websites. And so I would suggest to you, if you have absolutely no idea what to study, you just go on one of those 4 websites and you look at their courses in an A to Z order because they're very easy to navigate around, and you will see things that you won't even know what they mean. And click on one and just spend the time. And the ideal time to start your research is actually possibly at the end of year 11. And for university, definitely this time of year for year 12. This is when you're finishing school, you've got a little bit more free time. This is when you put your research in. And of course, if you're applying for high demand courses, and I'll come on to those shortly, you will need to be ready because your application deadline is a lot earlier. So start off with a city or even a place that you've never been to and just think, well, I'll just see what's on offer there. And from that, you'll get a feel of the type of course. You might do chemistry. Well, it's taught differently in every single institute. You might want to know how are the marks awarded. Is it continuous assessment? How much goes on the first year? How much on the second year? On the third year? Is there an option to study abroad, as Liverpool University offer, and many others do? They're twinned with other countries. Find a course you've never heard of. Look at the entry requirements. They will be on every single website so that it's completely transparent, so there's no surprises. See if you fulfill the criteria. Rule out before you can rule in. How's the course going to suit your style of learning? Because we're all very different. So, for example, I'm talking to you. You've probably been through school when you're used to focusing on a background with a PowerPoint and notes afterwards. This is a skill you'll need to acquire at university, listening and actually paying attention in a way that perhaps you're being spoon-fed sometimes in school, sometimes not. It's a very different skill set, okay? Some universities record all their lectures, others don't. So even within one university, it will be very variable. So do your research, find a course that you like the look of, look at that course at other places too, and then consider open days. Now, open days are still online and some are face-to-face. Go to one. Do not move to a city that you've never been to before or an institution that you have never stepped foot in. Do the research. Make sure you get that sorted. So hopefully you'll end up with an idea of where you want to go and what you want to study. So the place, some people like a campus university. I don't think I even knew what that meant when I first started looking myself. And a campus university is one where everything is, it's usually out of town and everything is on a site. It's like a little student town, basically. University of Lancaster is a beautiful campus. Keele is another one. So you might prefer that. You might not want the big city. You might want to move to London and attend one of the colleges there. So do your research into what type of place you want to study as well as the course. Are you somebody who might want to pop home every weekend? You may not want to leave this home city. Why would you? It's got everything here. It may well be financial reasons. And again, as a teacher, I can say that many people are staying at home because common sense tells you it's cheaper, and you have actually got some cracking universities here which are doing amazing research. When you get to university, obviously your prime aim is to study, and I would suggest to you that you still find a little bit of time to do the things that you won't ever have an opportunity to do again. So when I taught at an all-boys school at SFX, I used to say to the boys in year 12, join the ballroom society. And they all laughed. Why would you want to learn ballroom dancing? And this was before Strictly, before it was quite fashionable and the thing to do. And my argument was, there will always be some point in your life where you're at a formal occasion and you'll be expected to be able to dance. So that was one reason that you can then feel confident. It may be your wedding day. It may be the works due at Christmas, whatever. And another reason, particularly when I was in a more boys' school, was that it was a great way of meeting girls. Not that that's the only reason why we should do anything, but if you're away from home, you've got no sort of support network, it's a really good way of filtering out people who are doing things, that are a little bit different. So I would, and other dance societies are similarly inclined. So have a little think about that. Through politics groups, there are all sorts of sporting, recreational activities that you've never even heard of, and they're subsidised. So they cost next to nothing. So do try, and this is based in, for example, at every university, do try and take up everything that's on offer. If you want to look at every school, obviously in your school, you've got a head of sixth form who should be driving this forward. But there's also newspapers, and again, every school tends to get into the library or the resource centre what are called the quality newspapers, the broadsheets as were, and the Guardian and the Times and the Daily Telegraph all have special sections on university, particularly as the build-up in the autumn comes along. Now, I can heartily recommend the Guardian website. There is no paywall. It says you may have to register or do it later. I always click do it later. And it has a wealth of information. So that's www.guardian.com. It has league tables of every subject. And it has links to other sites. It's very, very informative. Entry requirements. Now, you have to be realistic about your chances of grades at A-level. And that's very uncertain at the moment because you've been through very disrupted education. And the year that I took stat exams in year 11 and year 13, year 13, it's the first public exams they've done. So everyone's watching and waiting. And I can tell you, as somebody who's marking the A-level chemistry and the GCSE, it's quite a different year, okay? That's going to be taken into account when the examiners meet and set grade gap boundaries. You won't be penalised for having had different experiences of time in school, time out of school, staff absence. There's a huge amount of work that's going on behind the scenes in the exam boards to help you get the best opportunity to go on and succeed. So I would advise you, if there are 5 entries on UPass, that you apply for 1 aspirational, 3 which match your current working grades or target grades, and 1 insurance policy. There's no courses because you've got nowhere to go if it doesn't work out. Now, what do I mean by aspirational? So, obviously, the Redbook universities, the Russell Group universities, but what do they even mean? Well, Liverpool was one of the original Redbook universities, which means, literally, it was made out of red brick. Okay, so 6 or 7, they started off as university colleges to rival Oxford and Cambridge, and all ended up as their own university. So that's where they've got that name from. The Russell Group universities are your Premier League, if you like, in footballing terms, where they get in that league by the amount of research they've done and the length of time they've been around. So, for example, Lancaster, which is top 10 in just about every research subject there is, won't be in the Redbook or Russell Group because it's a new university, but still is one of the top universities to attend. So do your research on that as well. So aspirational universities are Oxford, Cambridge. Aspirational courses are medicine, veterinary science, dentistry, law, and they have a slightly different process, okay? If you're applying, I remember my oldest daughter was applying to do medicine, and you get 4 medical school choices and 1 backup. And she said to me when she was applying, I'm not using my 5th choice. Now, as a mum and as a teacher, I was horrified. I'd actually never come across a group who'd done that. Everybody puts down a 5th choice. And I was like, but why? And her view was the only thing she wants to do was medicine. So if she didn't get in, she wasn't going to go, and she'd have to do whatever it takes to get there. And sure enough, she had to do whatever it takes to get there. That's one attitude, but most people like to have a fallback plan. So look at the entry requirements. I had parents sat there opposite me in school saying, I need 3 A stars predicted for my daughter, and the daughter or son was working at, grade C. And I'd say, actually, no, you want that. What you really need is a course which matches your child's grades. There's a big difference. Definitely apply to one aspirational university, but don't make it impossible for your child and make them feel that they've not succeeded, when actually going to university itself is a success. So check on the entry requirements, check on the place. Family circumstances will definitely be a factor in most people's lives, because very few of us are in a situation where we can, just make decisions and not worry about the financial consequences or our roles in families that we have to do. Remember, the fees are there, they will need to be paid, but it's an investment in yourself and in the way that you've made informed decisions about the type of phone, the type of device that you might use for recreation. Then you do the same sort of research as a minimum, because it's going to be the biggest decision you will ever make and take in your life. So the application process. Well, early applicants have a deadline of the 15th of October. Doesn't matter what you're applying, it is always the 15th of October. So that's for Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, and veterinary science. And actually doing the application is just the start of the whole process. So everyone else who's applying for other courses, there's the 26th of January deadline, and then you can dip in and dip out of UCAS throughout the year, but they're the main 2 dates to concentrate on. If you're applying to do medicine, you will need to also do probably the UCAT, okay, which is an additional test that you have to prepare for. I'll come back to that in a moment, and the BMAT. If you're going to one of the colleges at Oxford or Cambridge, you will also have to take additional exams for that, and potentially also submit work to show that you're working at the quality that the schools say you are. So be prepared that the application form is just the start of the process. You will need to prepare if you're going to do the UCAS, as it's now called. And I do think that if you've, for example, been to a selective school which is used non-verbal reasoning and verbal reasoning like the Blue Coat does in the city, you're already at an advantage because you know the style of questions. But when I was teaching at both schools, St Edward's and SFX, pupils who'd never seen the 11 plus had no idea, and that took them a long time to get used to. So I would say if you're in year 12 and you want to do one of those subjects, you should have started your preparation out. You should certainly have registered for your UCAT, and the dates will disappear. So it's at the same place that you do your driving test theory, okay? So it's in town, so you haven't even got to travel far. But book your slot well in advance, because they do go and you don't want to be travelling when you should be focusing on your studies. Okay? There are all sorts of student forums like the Medic portal, another website I would strongly recommend. It's got a huge amount of advice and experience there for you to tap into. And they have questions for free that you can practice. There's books that they recommend that you buy. There's courses they run, but I'll warn you now, the courses are very expensive. However, I would say the first people I knew who went on one did so well, and it gave me a little bit of reassurance. He was right at the top of all the indicators and had no problem getting interviews and offers of places at medicine. So it's that idea. Don't go, do not say to mum and dad, the bank of mum and dad is sometimes closed for a good reason, okay? do make sure that you perhaps consider, what can I do to help out here? Maybe I can use gift money, Christmas money, or whatever, maybe get a little job. Now, working part-time is obviously a thing that a lot of sixth formers do, and it can be very beneficial. It has been shown through research actually conducted in Liverpool that there is a certain level of working which gives you experience, a little bit more independence. But I also remember teaching one lad at SFX who was working part-time in one of the sports shops in Speak, ended up being the part-time manager, and I said to him, your A-levels in maths, further maths and chemistry are going to suffer here. And indeed they did. He didn't get quite the potential. He did go on to a good university, but you can only do so much if you don't. So be careful about overcommitting yourself with part-time work. When you apply to university, a particularly high demand course, they'll almost certainly interview. So that's extra preparation. What type of interview will it be? Are there going to be, when three lecturers are sat behind a table and you're there one to three with them? Or will you be in a group of people? Medicine have what we call mini multiple interviews, where you go from station to station, and Oxford and Cambridge, it tends to be a panel where you're sat in, and questions can seem very eccentric. To have got that far, you must have worked on your personal statement. So your personal statement is what most people struggle with. And I know you've got somebody coming in later who's going to talk about that. It should complement the reference that school gives you, because there's no point putting the same information down twice. So it shouldn't be repetitive. And you shouldn't be afraid to ask your teachers at school, do you mind me seeing my subject reference, please? Or do you mind me seeing my whole reference? Because after all, it's going to be sent by a computer. So under GDPR rules, you have got some entitlement to see that. And also because it's quite amazing sometimes what teachers, can say if they work well with the pupil, and they can totally change the focus of the person's statement for the pupil, having done their part as a reference. So what's your personal statement got to be like? Well, it's got to show that you are actually very much the sort of person that particular institution wants. How do you do that? Well, you show them that you've done your research, that you give reasons why you want that particular subject at. You can't be too specific about that particular college because it will be going to 5 universities. So you have to really talk about the things that you've enjoyed about a particular subject in school. So I always used to say to anyone who's applying to do chemistry, well, what's your favourite part? And quite often it would be the practicals, and I'd say, well, make sure that goes in there. And say, don't just put I love doing experiments. Tell them what you've learned from doing the experiments. You might have like the mathematical aspects of chemistry, and then you put that in, saying you particularly found the calculation challenging and rewarding. So you put your slant on it, which says that I'm a unique person. What is my unique selling point? And the sad reality is, of some of the courses that you'll be applying to, like law, if any course at Oxford or Cambridge is, they are going to get literally hundreds and thousands of applicants who all got top grades, 7, 8, 9 at GCSE, who were all predicted to get grade A's and A stars at A level. So it's not enough to be just academically bright. You need to have something else. And that's where your personal interests come in. I remember the tale of one girl who was applying to do dentistry at Sheffield. And when she was in her interview, somebody just said, what do you do in your spare time? So this was nothing to do with what was on her personal statement or the school's reference. And she said, I love knitting. My nan taught me how to knit. Well, the interview, she said, changed at that point because they were interested. And I've never thought about this. If you're doing dentistry, what you want is really good manual dexterity in a small enclosed space, because think about the size of somebody's mouth. That is what knitting is. So she had an absolutely brilliant interview after that. And of course, after that, when she came back and told me, I made sure that I actually started a knitting club at school so that people could say I enjoy knitting. And it is actually quite relaxing. I know that because I've just started doing it since my retirement. Another lad there was a club called Warhammer at school, which involves painting little figurines and models of battle scenes and things like that. And I used to think it was quite an interesting choice of hobby. He talked about that, and he actually had one on him, and it was a minute. He got it out of his pocket and said, I really like painting that. Now, he did dentistry as well. And they were really interested because, again, it shows the ability to work in small spaces and to work very delicately. So you must think about the things you do in different lights and think, how can I turn this to my advantage and make sure that everyone realises that, I enjoy singing. Like, why do you enjoy singing? Well, because it helps me socialise with people. It may be what helps me keep calm through the week. There's always a reason why you do something other than mum, dad, or the school has told you you must do something. So all of these things are on top of your academic qualifications. And if you are applying to do any of the healthcare courses, midwifery, radiography, nursing, mental health nursing, any of those, as well as the medicine and the dentist, think about, we've come through the pandemic, and people haven't been able to get the work experience that they normally could get. So how do you get across that you're a committed individual to society, which is what all medics will need to be? Well, you can still do voluntary service at a food bank, for example. I know that there's one at St Mary's in Wavertree that are desperate for people to help out. You don't have to be there 10 hours a week. You can just do an hour at the time that suits them. And that is valid work experience. And again, on your application form, you don't just put down, I volunteered at a food bank. What did you learn from it? So you would say something along the lines of, I realised that sometimes people just don't want to speak and appreciate silence, or I realised that people just wanted to be treated with respect. There are ways, as you'll find when you go there, the things you take for granted are often quite shocking when you see them in pick. So find some work experience. So as kind of everything I'd say about the university process at this point, but I want to talk about a couple of other things that you may or may not have heard of. So end of year 11, definitely start your preparation. So for example, there is an organisation called the Nuffield Foundation, and they have research placements delivered by STEM Learning, where you will get the opportunity to work alongside researchers and industry professionals. They take place in the summer holidays at the end of year 12. So they are literally about to go live for the current year 12. And they can last between 3, 4 and 6 weeks. Travel costs are reimbursed, and there is a bursary available to help with people in hardship. Where do they take place? Well, at universities, again, Liverpool, John Moores take part in this programme, but you could end up in a London university or a Scottish one. So, and again, all of that is part of, they will try and help you out. You could be working in an office, you could be working in a lab, you could go into industry. So you could even go abroad. I remember telling a girl to apply to, there are some in America through Sutton Trust. She ended up getting a scholarship at an American university, and she's just graduated. So there are areas out there that you possibly haven't even heard of. They have a celebration. The applications begin in early autumn of year 12, and there is a celebration usually in the autumn term of year 13, where as a teacher you will be invited, and the pupil and their parents. There is a regional coordinator for the Northwest. Her name is Helen McCann, and I've got the email address too. But knowledge is power, okay? Get your application in there. Find it again, just Google Nuffield Foundations. So they work with STEM, again, Google STEM Northwest. There's also something called the Sutton Trust, which helps with 1 week summer courses. So I was lucky enough as a teacher to go to one in London, where there was a collaboration between King's College, Imperial College, the Royal Veterinary School, and what was the other one? There were 4 institutes together. And they'd asked teachers to come down, because what they were very keen to do is encourage people from all over the country to go to London College, not just those who live in London. And so there are lots of opportunities there. Now, for Sutton Trust, it's slightly different. Okay, there's over 40 subjects at leading institutions. So you could be ending up doing film and new media up in St Andrews in Scotland for an Arts and Humanities one. They do the computer science actually at St Andrews as well, because that's one of the top 10 universities for computer science. Medicine and health sciences, possibly at King's College. Maths at Imperial, science at quite a few places, and social sciences like law as well. So it's not, and philosophy, so it's not just science-based for Sutton Trust. They take place in the summer of year 12, and again you have to start applying in the autumn, all around the UK. All costs are covered, transport, travel, and when you're there, for example, in London, you get money for the tube, you get a tube pass each day. So how are you eligible to apply for Sutton Trust? Well, you have to be what's called first generation to go to university. So if your mum or your dad has been, you can still apply, but the chances are you won't be successful. If your older sister went, that's not a problem, because you're still classed as first generation. Okay, you may need to be, if you're in receipt of free school meals or a looked after child, there's very much a commitment there to helping you. And once you've been on a Sutton Trust summer school, you're flagged up if you do apply to university at that particular institute that you attended. And it's very difficult for them to reject you. So I had one lad, I had one pupil who came with me. We went to Eton, so we've all heard of Eton. Most of our prime ministers have been educated there. We were invited to take two pupils down to Eton to look at applications to medicine, and he realised, he'd come from St Edward's College and thought that was the competition was the blue coats. We went to Eton and we realised that was just the tip of the iceberg. They were very accommodating, but it made us realise that it's a massively competitive field out there. He took a Sutton Trust summer school, went out to America. He applied to do medicine at Oxford and Imperial College, not Imperial College, I think it was King's College, and a couple of other places. And because he'd been to the Sutton Trust summer school, only one person could reject his application, and they obviously chose not to. They offered him a place. He was spoilt for choice. Today, he's graduating from Oxford after doing 6 years there, all from a chance remark about a summer school at Sutton Trust. So it does show you that if you do your research, I keep on saying it, you'll be surprised what you can find out. And they will support you to university too, because it's, some people need more help than others at adjusting to the lifestyle. Now, Liverpool University also has a widening participation focus, and that's called the Liverpool Scholars Programme. That's their particular widening participation. To be eligible for this, you need to have attended school in Greater Merseyside, have 5 good grades at GCSE and be in year 12. Also, and you can do this online, if you live in an area where traditionally people do not go to university, so you just put your postcode in. So I just tried mine yesterday to see, I live in Liverpool 15, to see if that would be eligible, and it wasn't. But there are other parts of Liverpool that definitely would be. So it says postcode orientated. That's not the only criteria. Again, first in generation of your family to attend university would be a qualifying criteria, as with free school meals or looked after children. So what do Liverpool Scholars offer? Well, they have a range of activities for year 12 to support your entry into the world of higher education, university and modern apprenticeships. They do masterclasses, they do lectures, they do academic key skills, they do workshops, and it's delivered in partnership with the University of Liverpool. Okay. What benefits are there from this, apart from meeting other pupils in a similar position? Well, if you complete their programme, you have a guaranteed offer of a place in the University of Liverpool. The offer reduces by 2 grades. So if it was medicine, which is normally 3 A's, it would be down to an A and 2 B's. Okay? And so it's particularly advantageous to the medics, the dentists, the vets. And you will also receive a bursary, which is non-repayable. So they'll actually give you some money to help you make that adjustment. So I've talked about a wealth of information available out there, but your starting point is your school. Find out who your head of sixth form is. You may have an additional careers officer. You can ask for a careers interview with the citywide partnership. They should offer you independent careers advice in an interview. You may have option evenings in year 12. Make sure you go them. There may well be careers fairs at your school if they've got a really good network of former pupils who've gone on to do well. Ask the pupils in the year above you or the ones that have just left. Make full use of them. Ask their parents. So the school I went to in Coventry, in those days there was a lot of car manufacturing in Coventry, and literally everybody's dad worked on the car assembly lines, and the mums tended not to have work because it was last century, it was a long time ago. I didn't know anybody whose dad was a doctor, whose mum was a vet, who was a lawyer. That wasn't on my radar. And I was lucky enough that my children went to a school where there were people who had their own businesses, there were teachers, there were people in hospitality, there were medics, there were lawyers, and they grew up thinking that was normal. I never had that experience. So I'd already put shutters in place that I voluntarily had put in place. They've grown up thinking you can do anything if you want to. So tap into that wealth of expertise. Talk to teachers in school because they have come via a route that may not be traditional. Not everybody does everything. GCSEs at 16, A-levels at 18, graduates at 21. Not everybody follows that route, and it's the non-traditional routes which can be just as useful as the traditional route. So I suppose, and obviously I'll ask questions, think about you, the rounded individual, your academic, what you socially aware, the hobbies you do. You are your most important project. And the next few months or years will have a huge impact in the quality of life that you will lead, the decisions you'll be able to make. So the research that goes in, plan it accordingly. There are lots of help sites on the internet that you can use. Make sure that you tap into them. But you've got a great opportunity here with the people that you will see, and you've got a great opportunity at the school. And don't be afraid to have what I call sharp elbows and ask and say, Miss, I know you're busy now. When's a good time to come and talk to you about studying at university? Staff will always be busy, but if you just ask when's a good time, most teachers will try and help you because otherwise they wouldn't be in the job. So that's all I've got to say. Obviously, now's the time for questions. Is there anything that you feel I haven't talked about at all? I've only mentioned modern apprenticeships, and that is very much a route to getting the same degrees. If you can get a company that will pay for you to study, why wouldn't you? Because there are, like Shell will pay for people to study. They have to go to work for them for a year before you do the degree course. You're earning money all the time. They will pay for you to go to university. You'll have holiday jobs, and you'll have a guaranteed job when you're finished almost certainly. Why wouldn't you think about that as an option? Or if you're doing law, again, the legal firms in this city, we're so fortunate with what's on our doorstep. There are plenty of those. And the accountancy, absolutely massive. So lots to think about. I hope I haven't sort of put anyone off, which is never the idea. I hope that you found some use for it. So has anyone got any questions here today?
This is absolutely helpful and it's so informative.
Oh, thank you.
We actually offer part-time jobs.
Oh, right, well, there you go. You're helping out in your local
assistance, tutoring work, at our mastering and tutoring our primary students.
Yeah, and how would you put that in a personal statement?
Well, Only Learning Centre is a very good starting point if you want to work in a hybrid environment, either office or a school, or we have some IT work as well. So social media all combined together. It's a very good opportunity.
An excellent start. And you can say you're helping out in your local community. You are realising the value of working in a team, which you don't always get the opportunity to do. There are lots and lots of ways of putting a nice gloss on that, even though you're doing it anyhow. It's not about earning money necessarily. Jobs that pay the best don't necessarily turn out for the best. it is about showing that you are that little bit more motivated to help out. So, the excellent opportunity here in this.
And talking about apprenticeships, we have been talking with Liverpool College. They offer the business apprenticeship course. After 18 months, the apprentice can go to university to the degree in business.
Excellent. Yeah, I've got on the government website, www.gov.uk, it's further education skills, and there's also findandapprenticeship.service.gov.uk for looking at modern apprenticeships. So
OE Learning Centre is a part of it.
Absolutely,
with the government and the college.
That's superb, isn't it? Very fortunate to have this, and so accessible as well, especially as a number of your people will glucose, I'm sure. But it's on a great bus route.
Talking about the Blue Coat students, Amy's from Blue Coat, and we have actually invited Wendy. Wendy Yan. Wendy, she's currently our online maths tutor.
Oh, right.
She can actually tutor chemistry as well.
Oh, wow.
She's doing medicine at Imperial College now.
Right.
So Wendy, can you hear me, Wendy?
Hi, yes, I can.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you for coming. Do you have something to share with our students and the parents, your experiences of applying for Imperial College? What did you go through? Sorry, I
could use the projector today. I hope
terrible anxiety.
So here, Wendy, from the
device, and
so not last year, the year before, I applied for medicine, and to apply for medicine, most people, as mentioned earlier, you take the UCAT, which you use to apply for pretty much all of the unis. And then apart from the UCAT, you can also take the BMAT if you want to apply for Oxbridge or Imperial College, UCL, Leeds, and I believe there's a few others that also take the BMAT. So obviously when you apply for university, you have to do your research properly and know what different universities look for in an applicant in terms of what GCSEs you need, what predicted grades you might need, and also if there's any entry exams that are required. So for medicine and dentistry, all of the universities are going to require one exam, and it will either be the UCAT or the BMAT. It's never going to be both, it's just going to be one. And to apply for medicine and dentistry as well, obviously you have to have your everything submitted earlier, and after you've done your admission exam, you'll also definitely be interviewed. So for other degrees, you may just send in your application with your personal statement, and then you may receive an offer straight away. Whereas with medicine and dentistry, all of the universities are going to interview you. So it kind of makes the whole process a lot longer, because they might want to wait until they've interviewed everyone before they start sending out any offers at all. So this could mean that you're waiting until maybe March, April, or even May, despite sending your application in by October. So just from my experience, it's definitely quite stressful, but you have to kind of brace yourself for the experience. And just remember, everyone is kind of in the same boat there. Everyone is waiting to hear back from unis, and some universities may just decide that they want to take a little bit longer than others. And that's just something you have to accept. In terms of if you're in year 11 now, what you can be doing to try and have a better chance at getting offers, definitely check out your volunteering, and online courses are always really good to mention in your personal statement, just to show enthusiasm and interest for any particular subject. It doesn't have to be medicine or dentistry, just whatever it is that you want to apply for. do your own research or something into the subject, some wider reading, and make sure first of all that it actually is something that you're interested in. And if you have this, inner interest, then you do your wider reading or online courses, and you can mention that in your personal statement as well. And then when it comes to interviews or people asking you about what you've applied for, then you have something to talk about as well to show you are actually interested. And that's the main thing that they're going to look for in interviews. And it's something that you want to be conveying in your personal statement as well. Show them that you do really want to be applying for this degree and that you're the right person for it. So that's mainly why, it's really important to do your research properly into universities, and especially research into the course itself, because even if it's, say you're applying for chemistry, if you apply for 5 different universities, their courses are all going to vary a bit. So, of course, there's a lot to take into account for when you're applying for uni. Obviously, take into the city, the atmosphere, but also the course itself is very important to look into as well. And it's definitely not something that you want to discover is not right for you when it's too late. So for anyone that's in year 11 right now, try and look into different types of degrees and look for what is actually covered in each of the degrees, and make sure that it is what you're interested in, and not just you're not settling into something that you might enjoy. Make sure you actually really want to do what you're applying for, because it is 3 years or 4 years after all, or 6 years. So I think that's the most important thing. Apply for something that you genuinely are really going to enjoy doing.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I can't wait to meet her. She's living in Wirral. Hopefully she can come to visit us, Wendy. Wendy, OE Learning Centre is in Wavertree.
Oh, right.
15, not far from you. If you have time this summer, I heard from your mom that you're going to have a very busy summer. Just to pop in, maybe you can talk to some young people here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no problem at all. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to.
We have some online friends and students sitting in our classroom. Any questions to Mrs. Manning about University of Kings or presentation, interview, preparation? That can be a very long process.
Oh yes, the more you put into it, the more you'll get back. Absolutely, 100%. Informed decisions, informed choices. If you're going to apply for any course and you get called to an interview, even they have these open courses. So one of my daughters did history, and they had an open day at Liverpool, and she just went along. But find out who's going to be there, what's their particular area of expertise. So if you can talk to the lecturer, you'll know the name in advance, and his area was Irish history. Well, it shows you've just been that little bit more, inclined to do your research, find out what you can talk about, and therefore they're going to remember you. You see sometimes at university open days, people ask questions, and they're just saying it because they think they've got to ask a question, and they often come out looking worse than before they've opened their mouth. It's a question that's relevant to the person who's stood in front of you that will make an impression, that they'll remember. Oh yes, I remember. She was the young student who knew about the strong Irish connections with the Irish government, for example, which the University of Liverpool History Department did. She knew about the functions they put on for adults outside of university day. So, that's but your unique selling point is what you do to make you stand out from the crowd. And it doesn't necessarily need to be done in the loudest voice. Sometimes you can get there very nicely. If you've made a decision choice about your degree, keep in touch with the admissions tutor all through. So yes, there might be 400 people starting history at Liverpool University. How many of them are going to apply to the admissions tutor after getting the offer and accepting it? You can just drop them an email and say, I think my exams went okay, but I'm not quite sure how they'll go, and they'll reply. And they will remember you on results day. And I can definitely say that as a teacher, because there were a few pupils for various courses who would say to me, oh, it didn't go well. And I just said, email the course tutor now. Say, everyone thought I was going to get a grade A, but one paper wasn't too well. I had bad hay fever, or I didn't feel I performed at my best. But I still really want to come to your institution to study this. And it's particularly Liverpool University, they look after their own. If you're from the city of Liverpool, don't be surprised if they will drop a grade down for being from Liverpool anyhow. For most courses, not the high demand ones. But you will find that keeping in touch can also pay off. And I would say about chemistry, because I think that's my subject, it's a great A level for not just the sciences, the health sciences, but for law. Because what you need to be a lawyer, you need to be analytical, you need to be forensic in the detail, you need to have great observational skills. Well, that's exactly what's going on in experiments in a lab, isn't it? So, transferable skills. So don't feel that because you've done chemistry, you have to just do sciences. There are many other areas out there for you as well. And again, you will stand out, I've got one pupil who went on to do ancient history. She did biology, chemistry, and maths A level. And her reasoning was that, the scientific side of ancient history, the archaeology aspect, she was uniquely placed. Chemistry showed she had analytical skills, and maths showed she was numeric. She graduated a few years ago, and she's having, a great career. But she was well able to use her unique selling point. There won't get too many people applying who have not got, just history as an A level or English or whatever. So don't be afraid to be a little bit different. Don't be afraid to email people in year 12 and year 11. I was wondering that you'll be surprised how helpful people are, because they want you to have what we've had. I think I was so lucky to be able to do what I did, and to go on to do other things that I want everyone to have that opportunity. Doesn't mean everybody has to have it because they don't want it. But I don't think that anyone should have a barrier put in front of them. So, you'll be surprised how much people want to help you.
And then I think it's mainly down to communication skills.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes.
Well, if you think of any, just leave them with Jenny and I will get back to you.
If you find it hard to think of any question, we got these kind of notes.
Yeah.
You just make the notes. We got one here. I got one from one student.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know where but I remember the question. She's currently in year 11. She's going to do medicine, but for her A level, she doesn't know what to choose subjects. She can choose, of course, chemistry, biology, math, but she would like to choose the fourth one.
Okay, well, I would urge caution about picking the fourth A level because the A levels that have been in place since 2017 are much more demanding. And it was great before that. You could start 4 ASs and do an AS at the end of year 12 and take 3 A levels through. That's gone, that opportunity, because schools have to pay for AS entries and the exam actually isn't half the A level. So I know quite a few people who started with 4 A levels and realised that it was costing them grades. And so what will be more useful to you is to get 3 A stars rather than an A star and 3 A's. That sort of hard reality. However, if you're spoiled for choice and you don't know which A levels to do, and pick a subject because you love it, by the way, because you're going to be spending so much more time at A level studying it than at GCSE. So, my preferred combination is chemistry, obviously, and chemistry has always been the A level that they ask for the highest grade. In the days when you'd be getting to do medicine for with an A and 2 Bs, the A was always chemistry. And the reason for that is it is the hardest A level to get a grade A in. And it's not me saying that as a chemistry teacher, that's the University of Durham's research on that. So that's why they always ask for chemistry. You don't need biology to study medicine at A level, though you'll only be able to apply to about 3 or 5 medical schools without it. So I wouldn't suggest not doing biology. I think it would be very foolish. However, I should point it out that you don't necessarily need it. So biology and chemistry, as a chemistry teacher, my dream combination is maths. And in the days when you could do 4 A levels, further maths is even better because there is so much maths in chemistry. It's got a huge amount of content of maths. So that's my personal preference. Have I taught people who went on to get into medical school and didn't do maths A level? I certainly have. So it's not a barrier to success. It just makes my job easier as a chemistry teacher. Because what you find with people who aren't doing maths A level is that they get het up about the maths. And in fact, the level of maths is straightforward usually. I mean, it's a little bit more interesting in year 13. But most of the maths is relatively straightforward, but they concentrate on the maths marks rather than thinking about the chemistry. And I always say it's easier to get maths marks in chemistry than chemistry marks. But pick them because you love them. I've known people do Spanish. This is a phenomenon I've never seen before. I moved to St. Edward's, and I was like, "You're doing medicine or dentistry with the Spanish level?" Oh, Latin. Well, yeah. That's your unique selling point anyhow that you're doing Latin, especially from the state school, because so few state schools do it. And the days of needing Latin to prescribe are gone. But you stand out then because, again, you know, it's actually the easiest way to get into Oxford or Cambridge, by the way, is to study classics. Okay? I haven't really touched on Oxford or Cambridge. So, you know, if you've got any questions on that, do so. But yeah, Latin definitely, chemistry is a facilitating A-level for any subjects that you want to study at university. I think Latin would have that rarity value. I had one lad at SFX who went on to do medicine, who did, it was philosophy and ethics. It was a Catholic school, so they did RE A level if he wanted to. He went to Nottingham and he was told that what they found most interesting about him was that he was doing philosophy and ethics because they thought ethics would be a fine background for a medic. And I've never thought of that. So third A level can be quite varied and should be one. But the idea behind Spanish or French is not only are you applying another language, and we live in a global world and you're almost certainly going to move around the world, not just around the country, is that you also have an appreciation of the culture because they do the literature or the films of the particular language. And that again is a unique selling point, that you're not just going down a particular preaching hard academic route, you have that more rounded persona. So yeah, you know, think about other countries like if you think Portuguese, you know, Brazil, that's where they speak all Portuguese. Think about the potential there to also do visits.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to reduce their grades, but yeah, you know, like King's College, they have a really strong widening participation team, and I'm an advocate of social media. Use wisely. It's a good servant, a bad master. So, for example, I follow King's College widening participation group. It's KLCWP, I think. Imperial College have one. All the London, they are desperate to get people from the northwest down into London. So, you know, drop a line and say, I'm on the Liverpool scholarship in Liverpool. I realise that, you know, that's not quite the entry criteria, but what's helped? You will be absolutely fit. I met a professor at Lord Winston. You know, they are so, he's just an icon out there, Nobel Prize winner through this scheme. And they are desperate to get people to study from all areas and let nothing be a barrier in the way. They will really support you. Honestly, if I again, it's a finance thing with me. When my daughter wanted to do medicine, if we could have managed to get the fees for London, the accommodation, then that would have been an absolutely wonderful opportunity. But they do help people who are, you know, in entry criteria, that their accommodation fees would be not such a problem. So yes, they get in touch with them. Never be afraid to email anybody. What's the worst thing they can do? Ignore your email. What have you lost? 5 minutes of your life.
I don't think my English is as good as you, Jia. I have lots of spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes in my email, but I still email every day to people. I'm not afraid of people laughing at me. It's because it never happened.
No, honestly, you'd be surprised. But yeah, and mention, you know, that you're on the screen to anybody, you know. So don't worry that you're going to be, oh gosh, they're not interested. They really will be. They really will be. in.
Yeah. And any questions from the students online?
They may not know what it means, so you might put in brackets the University of Liverpool's widening participation programme. And then you've covered that bit, haven't you? You know, because everyone calls it something different. So, you know, Liverpool Scholars, and just put in brackets the University of Liverpool's widening participation programme. So, you know, but that's really helpful. And it certainly used to be the case on UCAS forms that you would tick a box and make sure that if you're the first generation that you let them know that. You absolutely must let them know that. And that your school knows that, because you'd be surprised. I found out things as a assistant head of sixth form, but I didn't know my pupils did. One of them played polo for England. How would I know that? Because it wasn't a feature of school until I read their own personal statement. It's the sort of thing the school should be celebrating, you know. But because if you don't tell them, they won't know.
But some students, if you feel you don't get enough support from your school, only learning center is running like a hub. You can get help from here, not from our teachers, from other peer students, because we have students here in here. We can discuss and talk about the information you have learned. During this half year for year 12, I feel they're like a very open thing. I don't know what method to use. Have to connect with all sorts of information and the people grabbing information to help them.
Yeah, and it's often chance conversations that you find out something's available that you didn't know of. And you know, if you're going to, and it seems like you just talk about medicine or BMAT or BLAT, because all the different ones for law. So if you're going to do something like that, you never take 6 weeks off in the summer holidays, you know, and expect to go back to school and pick up where you left off. You never take a week off at half term without keeping in touch with your subject. And I would say to you, at this time of year, if you were preparing to do the UCAT, well, in the way that you spend a couple of hours on your homework every night from school, minimum, you should be spending a couple of hours on your UCAT preparation. There's loads of free resources online. You don't have to buy the book. You don't have to go on a course. There are plenty available, but that's how you get on. You do your preparation. And I would say this, and I should have said it earlier, that for every hour you are taught in school, I expect you to spend an hour reading around the subject. Not doing homework, not doing copying up notes, just reading around the subject, because that's a small fraction of the hours you've got in the week, probably.
There are lots of information online. And from magazines,
New Scientist, yeah.
New Scientist is a very good magazine. If you have time, you can just read those magazines there on the bookshelf.
And it's very accessible. You know, you don't have to have a science degree to read it. It's written so that, you know, people who've got an interest in science can access the material and the stories, and all sorts of interesting stories that you might not think, that, you know, I didn't know anything about that.
Science is definitely the transferable skills which you find it beneficial to you.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's different if you do science to a certain degree. Your thinking method is quite wide open. The way you process information would be
absolutely
quite amazing. Talking about personal statement preparation and interview preparation, we originally were going to have a course today. Workshop starting this course today from Miss McKinley Smith from Oxford University. She worked in the admission office, so she's got so many resources to share with us. Unfortunately, she's got COVID, so we have to postpone it. Hopefully next weekend. If it's next Saturday, is that okay for you to come over? Yeah, next week. And that'd be absolutely helpful. I'm so looking forward to it.
You know, I thought your trip that you did was amazing, because I went to Cambridge for the first time in my life about 15 years ago. My husband examines and does Portuguese and goes to Cambridge. Well, he used to in those days quite often for the meetings before COVID. And one trip we thought we'd all go as a family. I just couldn't believe what it was like. If anyone had shown me that as a sixth former, that's what you could aspire to. it was just amazing. So to raise awareness by going to Oxford or Cambridge, it's just incredible to have that opportunity when you are young enough to do something about it.
We are going to London.
Oh,
but yes, we're going to come along with us. Yeah, we're going to have a big group of 40 people going to London to meet another teacher there in Imperial College.
Wow, that's just fantastic. Just do everything that's on offer. You know, bite the hands off if somebody says to do something.
I'm so happy that our learning centre can facilitate that.
Yeah.
We got the support from the parents and the students. Not just in Liverpool now, we are working on the wider base.
Yeah, well, online, of course, why not? Yeah, that's brilliant.
So thank you for your time.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for asking me. I hope
thank you everyone online. Thank you for coming today.
Okay, thank you.
I got the first news statement and something.
Oh, wow, that's brilliant.
It's just examples and one example as well.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm so
I also got one of my.
Come over.
Okay. I'm not sure if anybody wants to listen.
Yeah. I didn't find this, but be nice. We have to disconnect one of these things. Two USBs. How about that computer? Can we use another computer?
Yeah.
Or do you want to play it to our online?
I can send it to you.
Yeah, we can share that later.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of our meeting for today. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I have to stop recording.